Double P podcast. Double P.
What I like to call
Double P.
What I like to call
Double P podcast.
Welcome to
Got your milk.
Oh, whoops. Call back.
Cold.
Ice Cold, a podcast about AMC's The Terror, this season, season 2, The Terror Infamy. And we are reviewing the entire series. This is all spoilers for The Terror Infamy season 2. We're going to be specifically talking about the season finale, episode 10, Into the Afterlife. With me this week is somebody who pointed a shotgun at his stomach when he heard that The Terror Infamy was ending. It's Mork. Mork, how you doing?
Oh man, I am doing so good, Bubba, and I don't know how I'm gonna survive without this show. So I'll figure it out some way, somehow. And I believe I hear that Catfish. Did you take it personal when young Asako in the afterlife, it was in the pre-life, not the afterlife, told Yuko that she was a bride, not a fishwife. Did you take that personally? I hope
I didn't. I you know what? Always a fishwife and never a wife. That's my motto. Now I'm gonna plan this week because I didn't think there were very many ice cold moments. So I'm going to take note of any ice cold dishes of the show that you gentlemen lay down, and then my vote at the end is going to be for whichever one of you has the best ice cold dish.
Oh, I think there were some interesting versions of an ice cold that I have in my notes. But before we get to our notes and before we get to our ranking, we want to thank all of the loyal listeners who've put up with this silliness for now 2 seasons of The Terror on the Ice Cold podcast. I want to give a special tip of my cap to Peter Conley, a.k.a. our 4th co-host, who's our double L loyal listener down in Australia. Now, admittedly, I feel a bit bad. Peter was really down on this final episode. Last week, he had talked about how he had been tough on it, but he looked forward to each episode. He really was disappointed with this final episode. He said, felt like the ending was so off-kilter with the whole idea of The Terror. That was his opinion. We also got some notes from many people. I don't want to cover too many. I do want to mention John McDonough saying thanks for the podcast on YouTube, because I think we have to get to great loyal listeners, people who have really put up with some ridiculousness and tough Chester sentiment. And so, Catfish and Mork, are you guys ready to read this wonderful feedback we got from our good friends Amy and Asako, a.k.a. Naoko Mori and Miki Ishikawa?
Yeah, I want to read Amy's. I like that Amy has become a hipster by the end of the show.
Oh, Beatnik Amy. Absolutely.
Beatnik Amy is the best Amy. She's living her best life. And she's years away from having to see Thomas Howell again on the big screen wearing blackface.
She'll be so old when that comes. It'll be...
She might have to kill him all over again.
She may have had the best ice cold moment.
Oh, yeah, that's right. All right, well, guys, let's get to it. So Naoko Mori, who has played Chester's long-suffering adoptive mother, aunt/mom, Asako, she wrote, "Hello, gentlemen. So where was our invite to come and join you for the last podcast?" Question-y face. Then tears, crying. She goes, "I changed my flight back to London just for you guys."
Oh no, that was Mickey who said that. So Naoko said, "Hello, gentlemen. Where's our invite?" With a wink, and then I think Miki was the one who said, "Change my." Or she did the crying tears. It's hard for me to tell. Right. But anyway, yes, this is between the two of them.
Yes.
And so because we didn't invite them, Naoko wrote, "So hashtag ice cold." And then Mickey responded, "Seriously, ice cold? Ouch."
Right in the kisser. It hurts. Mm-hmm. Now, I think until we've had them on, though, I think that this is, obviously, this goes without saying that we have not had our last podcast until they've graced us with their presence. So we will do this.
And we'll go to London for it.
Yes.
That sounds good. You know what? I'm so excited because after all the work we've done for Double P Media, I'm so glad that the budget is finally there for us to go to London, the 3 of us.
Now, we are going to crash at Naoko's house.
Naoko. You know what? You're just going to keep messing up her name. Just call her Coco. I think you can do that. Because Miki called her Coco. So, you know what? That's easier for you to not mess up.
All right. Do you want to read the rest of this feedback, Mr. Pronunciation Police?
Okay. So Coco says, seriously, thank you so much for watching and doing these brilliant podcasts. What will I do without your fantastic weekly podcast, your wit, your banter, and your dulcet tones? By the way, you all have beautiful voices. You know what? She is possessed. She's possessed. You gentlemen are truly fantastic. Cannot wait to listen to more of your podcasts. I hope we get a chance to meet you all one day very soon. Thank you so much, Naoko, Coco, Asako.
Man, awesome.
I'm so glad you did not read any of the 3 names.
Aw.
I'm not.
Well, keep reading, Catfish. Keep reading.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So then Miki says, jumping on Coco's tail, but yes, I absolutely agree. Thank you guys so much for watching, giving our show your time when there's so much content out there. You guys have been so entertaining to listen to. Cheers. Thank you. And then, Bubba, Bubba, you are a man who, let's face it, as I said before, if there was any of the 3 of us who have experience dealing with women who are disappointed, it's you. So I'm glad you were the one who responded to this. You said, stop interrupting. We're trying to watch the episode. What a dick. Just kidding. We didn't know if you were serious, didn't want to pose halfway through. This is pretty intense. And then Naoko says, sorry, would have totally come. We'll shut up and let you finish the episode. Way to shut her down. This is why you haven't lost your touch with the ladies, Bubba. And you're like, quiet, woman.
Catfish, listen. Normally when a lady slides into my DM, I just...
Henry rearing his ugly head again.
Okay, let me say thank you to these wonderful actors who've been kind enough, once again, to put up with our silliness.
We apologize for not really being able to get it together. We mentioned it and then didn't follow up, and so I was a little surprised when they were like, hey, what about tonight? And I was like, oh, crap, we're not ready for this. We were not ready for this. Believe me, we need to better off that you did not join us this evening, because you would have seen that this is not as professional as it sounds every week.
It's somehow less professional than it sounds.
That is right. It is somehow less professional than it sounds.
Okay, the secret code word. If this is something that they really want to do, then the secret code word that they have to DM our secret hotline is Dandelion, and we'll make it happen.
Oh yeah.
Wow, okay.
And we need to prepare. If they listen to my incredibly awkward interview with the amazing Grace Zabriskie, they'll know why we want to prepare. So
yeah, Mork went.
Bubba is still mad at me.
when we covered Twin Peaks: The Return, Mork actually got to go to the lovely actress Grace Zabriskie's house to interview her for the podcast, and she is still not recovered.
Oh no, she recovered fine. The
listeners maybe not so much.
The listeners not so much. No, she chewed me up and spit me out. Yeah, it was a blast, and we would definitely love to interview these amazing actors about this show and all the other cool stuff that they're doing.
Now they ask what's next. To be honest, who knows? We got a million things. A lot of times we've done podcasts based around stuff we've read. That's how we got started in the podcast game, covering Game of Thrones. Then we did Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. We did Encyclopedia Brown's Digital Adventures on PBS. Right. And we recently did the Star series The Rook, where we had loved the book. The series really kind of disappointed us. I'm about to dive in and do another Star series entitled Dublin Murders, which is based on the Tana French novels, and the first one I read and loved. And I was going to hold off and see if the reviews were good before I dived into the podcast, but it's already debuted across the pond over in England, and they're very positive reviews. So we'll be covering that coming up in November. Plus,
I think we have to do The Golden Compass. We have to do that.
The Golden Compass is also coming up in November, as is Disney Plus's The Mandalorian, the first live-action Star Wars show. So you will not be able to escape us. Follow us at DoublePHQ on Twitter and Instagram, Facebook.com/DoublePHQ. You will never escape our dulcet tones. If you're like these actresses, you may escape our actual recordings.
Please, Bubba, let the accounting department know that I'm sending in my bill for Disney Plus.
Yeah, just file it in the circular file.
All right, well,
All right.
now that we've said some nice things, let's start talking about the episode.
And why don't I go first? I always go last.
Terrible.
Yes.
I always go last in the rankings, but I feel like I want to go first. And maybe it was because our good friend Peter, our fourth co-host, Peter in Australia, got to see it early and sent this note on our Facebook page that he was a bit disappointed. So I kind of went in not expecting much. And I'll be honest, I was pleasantly surprised. Even though I've had problems throughout this season, I've really enjoyed seeing the characters all again. Like I said, all the characters I find are generally likable, and even Yuko got what I would say is almost a happy ending for her. So I was pleasantly surprised, and I thought it was pretty tense. So I'm going to go 8 double W's out of 10.
Double W's?
Double W's?
Well, I think this was the most important part of the episode, and that was at the very end when we saw Wheelchair Walt.
Poor Walt.
Poor Walt.
Warned. You should have said it should have been triple W's. Warned Wheelchair Walt.
What did Walt do to deserve to end up in a wheelchair?
He thought he was tougher than he was.
I mean, this is not nice. This is a work of fiction. Give us a better happy ending than poor Walt in a wheelchair at the end. Once again, 8 out of 10. I was pleasantly surprised. The tip of my cap to Peter in Australia for setting my expectations pretty low. Why don't we go to you, Catfish? Catfish, what is your ranking out of 10 for this final episode, Into the Afterlife?
Well, we didn't mention it, but Peter said he gave it 3.
Whoa.
So I'm going to find myself somewhere in between your rating and Peter's rating. I'm going to give it 5, what I like to know as double Ks.
Double Ks?
Yeah, Killer Cocos. Because she tried to kill the shit out of that Yurei. She did not care. Otherwise, I was blasé about the episode itself. Of course, we lose Henry and not Chester. The whole time I was really hoping we'd lose Chester. I mean, honestly, I bumped it up for the kind of the during credits, post credits pictures of the actors and people behind the scenes, along with their grandparents. That was really cool.
That was cool.
That was cool to see. For sure.
Yeah, that was my favorite part. I mean, I did not like, and along with that, there were some things that could have been just small nitpicks that really stuck out to me. One was they seemed to be retconning what exactly happened between the two sisters. Presumably, Asako decided after she'd gone to America that she was going to swap the husbands, and yet in this scene, Asako wasn't even going to America. She had her sister had already been set up with Furuya, and supposedly Asako was going to stay home with the mom. So that one, they just made things more confusing there. And in the end, the dream sequence that wasn't a dream sequence but had to be a dream sequence was Chester and Henry on the boat actually being kind to each other. And Chester takes a picture after Henry tells him a story about how happy he was after Chester got adopted. And Chester didn't find out he was adopted until this whole story started.
Right.
And so the picture couldn't have be taken ahead of time. And then I thought, okay, this is a nice dream. And then they showed the picture that Chester supposedly took on Henry's casket. So, you know what? I'm sorry. Like, these things didn't happen a year ago.
Really good developing film.
He's a great photographer. He's a professional.
I mean, and as we all know, Henry and Chester never had this friendly of a relationship. So, I mean, there were a couple things where, as bad as my memory is,
and it's bad.
It's bad. That still, I was like, how can you be like retconning things that were established like 4 episodes ago?
Yeah.
And in general, besides that, I mean, those are picky things that I should forget about. But since the rest of it, I just thought it was a messy, not great ending to the whole thing. I mean, presumably after Henry was gut shot, he threw all the sutras into the grave, which is why the Yurei was covered with them. Otherwise, they didn't get in there before then.
No, he was using, in the shotgun, he was alternating between bird shot and sutra shot. So
okay.
He was actually shooting her with the sutras. That's what that was.
Right, and I have been arguing for sutra control for the longest time. All right, listen, yes. Catfish has gone on a bit of a deep dive into his ranking. Mork,
Good. Yeah.
You're the one. I went pretty high. Catfish went pretty low. You're the one.
Okay.
You're gonna break the tie and decide who's right. What is your ranking out of 10, Mork?
And just remember, if you get a super low rating, the two women are right outside your house. They're going to come in and beat you up.
Oh, there's nothing new on a Monday.
Mickey and Coco, they're right outside, ready to kick your ass.
I see no berets in the vicinity. So we start with 10 because I have a full heart and I'm so optimistic by nature.
Mm-hmm.
Then I see Asako's wardrobe, and instead of the cool hat and the cape and the opera glasses from a few weeks ago, they got her in like some kind of a moo-moo thing. So we deduct automatically for that.
Yeah, knock it down.
But then we see her. She's spitting mean dialogue all over the place. She's stabbing people repeatedly, way over the top, but I loved it. So then that boosts it up to actually a 12 is where we're starting it. But then when you factor in some of the missteps that I think Catfish was talking about and that you, Bubba, were referencing, I do knock it down from a 12. I do knock it down to 7 triple M's.
Triple M.
Yeah, Mexican magic matchups, where once again, when in doubt, in order to solve a Japanese spiritual crisis caught between worlds, what do? We call the Mexicans. So I actually, the end of it and the resolution and Chester and Yuko, that actually worked for me. It certainly could have happened a lot sooner, before every single person lost a limb or a parent or whatever. But it actually did work for me, and actually really redeemed a lot of it. But even from the beginning, I mean, last week, and Catfish, you were saying in terms of like it was before the credits, but we're seeing actors and the filmmakers and their family members, and even George Takei, who was there, which was incredibly powerful.
Adorable little pudgy George Takei.
Which one?
Cute.
Ben or no?
George.
But, okay, so that I thought was really, really powerful. But on the flip side of that, the first scene, just like last week, these are the last 2 episodes. This is the finale. It was this. We're talking about history, but we're not actually talking about anything having to do with the show, unless George Takei's old buddy's entire family was going to take out Yuko in the Afterlife or something. It had nothing, unfortunately, it had nothing to do with our characters and what we're seeing. It was just, this is history, and bad things happened in history.
Well, let's start there. Let's dive into the episode. Let's start breaking it down, Mork, and let's start with the way the episode begins. It begins with the dream of the afterlife, and it is just a dream of the living, dreaming of the afterlife, and Yamato-san sees a friend and a friend's ancestors who all went up in the Hiroshima. They really hardcore.
Right, but hold on.
We don't know. I got to cut you off there. But he hadn't heard
about Hiroshima, which is kind of funny. That's kind of a cool mystical thing. Let's not jump over. In his dream, he sees them, and he hasn't even heard about it yet.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't sure. So we see, and towards the end, we see this girl, this lovely young girl with these terrible scars. I wasn't sure if it was because of Fat Man and Little Boy, or because it was actually George Takei dreaming of the future, and the USS Enterprise had not set phasers to stun.
Oh God.
Maybe.
I'm blaming
Sulu. I'm blaming Sulu.
It's Halloween time, so that justifies the cobwebs around that joke.
Now listen, he wakes up, Yamato-san wakes up to the sound of firecrackers going off, and they go outside from these terrible squalor they're in, and we hear some guy celebrating, "We got him! We bombed the Japs." And this is one of the things I think this season has really missed, is that that's a terrible sentiment, but these Americans are, in their own thinking, are like, hey, they got us at Pearl Harbor. Now we got them back, and they're celebrating retribution. And it's really tough. Think of how that would be, is if your parents came from a place and you came from a place and your new country dropped a bomb on them like this, that would be really emotionally powerful. And they try to get into it in the next scene, with the next morning with Amy and Yamada-san, where Amy's talking about how she wanted revenge, and Yamada-san tells her, listen, it's totally cool you killed Bowen.
High five.
It's easy to want revenge, natural as death. And then Yamada-san says something that really, because these characters feel like they've been so sidelined to the main plot, when he said, I cry more now that we've come back from the camp. All we had gone, and the score is going, and the acting is what it is. I actually did feel that emotionally worked, even if we really have not spent much time with Yamada-san at all. That was my opinion. What do you think, Catfish?
Yeah, I mean, all along, I wanted to see more of George Takei in this. And, all along I've been upset with that the camp wasn't more a part of this whole thing. And really it didn't, unlike last year's storyline, the horror didn't feed into the real horror of what was going, the non-supernatural horror. They felt like two separate things. And so any more that I could have gotten from this would be, I just enjoyed. So I loved the George, all the George Takei stuff.
Yeah, no, I would totally agree with that, Catfish. I actually just saw, I was watching the extended, and there actually was some of the photos afterwards. There was a few more, and there was actually a clip from Dateline NBC where there was a case where they had, because when there was actually a murder that happened and before DNA, and it was there was a missing major, a naughty secretary, and George Takei. So I don't think it ends well. I think she gets caught. That's what I think happens to Amy. That's my real concern, guys.
Yeah, I agree. If Bowen was scary, wait till she meets Stone Phillips.
She's got nothing to worry about. Anybody who is wearing a beret, life is easy for them now.
Well, it's not easy for her. Even in the little kind of denouement there at the end, she's like, I see all my family, and it reminds me of what I've done, my shame. And I feel bad that this killing of Bowen turned her into a beatnik, depressed,
but she gets to smoke some of that good hashish.
I hope so.
She should go hang out with George Takei in Hawaii, man.
Yeah, her bongo band is doing real well. I would definitely, if Amy was running for president, I don't want to get political, but if she was running for president, she would get my vote.
Amen. We agree. And she's from, according to IMDb, she is from the great state of Colorado. The best thing to come out of Colorado since they legalized marijuana. So great job.
Well done, sneaky secretary.
Okay, so we've talked about, once again, some of the characters we love being, just off on their own little side story. Let's get to the main story. This was the mano a mano. This is, okay, we're going to wrap this up. And it starts where hitchhiker Yuko Luz gets picked up. Meanwhile, Henry finds sheets of paper, and Asako and Henry are finding out about Hiroshima as they get back to Luz's family's ranch and meet their good buddy Hector. Chester sees what he thinks is Yuko Luz walking in the street. He comes out to her, but it's regular Luz, who's now no longer possessed but has survived this ordeal, but the baby's not there.
Whew. I mean, you say she survived the ordeal, but by the end of the show, she's still living with Chester.
With three lovely children.
Her ordeal never ended.
All right, so the last takeover of the hitchhiker crew is a young girl who brings the baby to this shack where the stitched-together Yuko is kind of waiting to return to herself. Now, once again, this last member of the hitchhiking team, she is able to survive, or Yuko doesn't kill her in the end. And that is a plot convenience that's going to allow our heroes to find the shack and then find their way to the burial site at the end.
Now, I would have loved to have seen the explanation, like what happens with that girl. She's like this woman, Luz, came out of nowhere and killed my family. So, well, I mean, the only way I see around them getting in trouble for that is the girl is in a gots-to-go situation.
Basically, she got Major Bowened.
Yeah, she got Bowened for sure. It's like, well, this tragic accident happened to 3 members of a family.
Do you think it's possible that, I mean, Luz is very busy at the hospital, and, Chester, he's actually, shooting beautiful photographs, but they got 3 kids. So do you think maybe that this young girl is their babysitter?
That'd be great. That would be so great.
And that way they just keep it in the family.
I know that things didn't end too well, but we could really use your childcare help.
Now, for a while there, it looks like Luz is back safe in the safe house, in her family's house. Asako's there, they're safe. Chester needs Henry and Hector to drive him out to where they found this car so he can confront it.
Yeah, and this is where I think the real hero of the show, the whole season, in my mind, you talk about someone who delivered every single time. Of course, I'm talking about the person who made sure that the Packard was perfectly pristine and clean, not a speck of dust, no matter where they were, what they were doing, how hard they were driving. It always looked perfect. So just a shout out to them. They did an amazing job.
Good work, Yuko.
Oh, man. It's Yuko?
Well, after she got done possessing, is she just going to walk away from a filthy car? Come on.
She likes classic cars. What's wrong with that?
Who doesn't, really?
Now, Yuko, who was been stitched together, she uses her magic and her makeup to fix herself as close to normal as possible. While this is going on, we pan across back at the family house. We pan across and we see that Luz and Chester had some great wedding photos. And this is my first subtle ice-cold moment of the episode.
Oh, boy.
Let's hear it.
So Luz is, of course, depressed with everything she's been through. Asako's there. Right. Asako's there.
Remembering who she's married to.
Asako's there. And is this an ice-cold? When you don't want to talk to somebody, this might be the ice-coldest, yet subtlest way you could do it. Asako-san, I would like more broth. And Asako-san has to go get it. And that's a way to get rid of her so you can be miserable there in the room. Good work. Hashtag subtle ice-cold to Luz.
Well, we're coming up on, and we're coming up on what I think is actually, and I referenced it earlier, the real ice-cold moment. But it's a self ice-cold moment. So,
do you mean that this kind of flashback to where Asako-san's helping her sister Yuko get ready to be sent on a 2-month ship to the United States?
Yes, and now I don't know, as everybody knows, I don't actually know the whole where babies come from. So, because when she shows up, Asako compliments Yuko by saying that she's a bride, not a fishwife, which is Henry is a fisherman. He is a simple fisherman. He loves his country, and that's exactly what Asako was. I mean, I'm assuming that's what a fishwife is. The wife of a fisherman. I don't know, but I found that to be. Henry's a wonderful dude. We all love him, and other than him pointing the shotgun in the wrong direction, he's pretty much perfect on the show. So for her to be, I don't want to say that she was cursing herself or jinxing herself by saying that, but that was her fate. That was the life that she had. Now, but that was actually the life. What was cool about that line, I thought, even though it was a bit of an ice cold moment at both Yuko and back at Asako, was that she was going to be indeed a fishwife.
I want to go with an ice cold that is only visual in this exchange where Yuko says, "Oh, look, Furuya-san sent me this. Isn't he generous?" And if you just listen to Asako's response, "I heard he is a generous man," you would think, oh, that's not ice cold at all. But if you look at her face while she's saying this, Naoko Mori is nailing it out of the park with a great ice cold dead face when she said, "I heard he is a generous man." Ooh, ice facial.
So, do we want to guess at all as to what happened and how this went down?
I can't even begin to. I don't even think. I'm not sure they know anymore, or that whoever wrote this episode.
But that's why we're here, Catfish. That's right.
Let's go through it. So,
take it away.
So the family wants to set up their two daughters in arranged marriages. Now, if this is what I'm reading from the show, they say, okay, Asako, let's hook you up with this Furuya-san.
You're in your mid-teens, time to get married.
Right. Yuko will hook you up with this fisherman Henry.
Yeah.
Asako does a little research on him, pre-internet stalking. Okay. And she finds out, oh, wait a minute, this Furuya-san, the guy that I'm engaged to, he totally blows.
But
Mom,
he's generous. But he's really generous.
She's like, Mom, you know what? Yes, you set me up with the successful businessman and my sister up with a fisherman. But, I really think she deserves the successful businessman Furuya. And she can even get married first and have all the acclaim. Let's have that happen. And
okay, but now what we're forgetting, though, is that Yuko got pregnant and the father died shortly before.
Well, we don't know, though.
Well, no, we should assume. We should assume that the father of Chester was a soldier who died. That's what it was said, and because they never contradicted it or offered another explanation, I do think that's what we got to go with.
She did seem very happy to go somewhere else, considering the fact that at that point she was, 1 month pregnant, meant that the person that she loved had died less than a month from then.
It was a one-night love.
Yeah, but and this is where we need some guidance here. But normally, unless basically there's a waiting period before actually knowing that you're pregnant. So we know they kept saying 2 months. She was going on this boat ride for 2 months. Mm-hmm. They said it like two or three times.
But I felt like it was indicated that she knew she was pregnant then, tonight. That she knew she was pregnant, and then not just
Chester
after the
kept
fact.
Telling her she was pregnant. And how did Chester know she was pregnant?
I'm not even trying to get into that one. But I felt
it was from the orphanage at the nunnery where he found all those records.
Right, yeah. Like, this is a picture of your pregnant mother. Gotcha.
Okay, so I suppose it's possible that I misinterpreted and then she didn't really at that time know. I mean, the only indication that we had was, to me, there was the one indication was when Asako pulled her robe tight and she's like, no, that's too tight. But then I thought there was another point where she was like lovingly holding her hand on her stomach. So I thought she knew at that point that she was pregnant. And then also she says, and it shows the little diss why Yuko deserved everything she got, because she said, and then you get to hang out with Mom and take care of Mom.
Oh, so ice cold.
That's the part that totally befuddles me.
So when did Henry show up, and when was he cut out?
They were both in America, right?
That's the impression this episode gave us.
Furuya and Henry were both in America and even Henry says it in the end in the conversation he could have never actually had with Chester, where he says, I didn't have a son for a long time. Before I adopted you, I was essentially alone, and I called this boat. I gave it the name of First Son. Because
why didn't Yuko just take the boat?
That would have been so much easier.
Why didn't you just take the Packard? The boat was like, so what, lots of trouble, but that Packard was beautiful.
Can you imagine how beautiful that Packard would look in the afterlife? With everything else?
It couldn't have looked any better than it looked on that dusty.
It wasn't that dusty. It was pretty green for New Mexico, too. If you've ever been to New Mexico, I always say this. The first time I actually was in New Mexico, I was going down to Carlsbad Caverns, and I was looking around, and I was thinking to myself, you know what? I understand why they tested the nuke here. It's kind of barren. It's not green like it was on today's show. But okay, listen. Chester... He gets to this shack. He's going to go in with a gun to battle these spirits. Theoretically, that makes sense. Henry stops him. Chester says he has to go in. He enters. Yuko has covered the shack in the names of her ancestors, a.k.a. also Chester's ancestors. She's preparing for a burial. Listen, you got to get this. I'm going to kill myself. You get this photo to Luz and her family. They will do the ritual, and I'll give my younger self to Yuko. Everything will be golden.
And then Henry's like, no, and then Chester runs out. Well, you never loved me.
No, well, one of his ice colds was he says to Henry, God damn you. Oh, ice cold son to his dad, man.
It was pretty ice cold. Although I was watching in the deleted scenes where they walk in and Henry's like, oh yeah, so these are names. These aren't sutras. These are names. Her ancestors, your ancestors. Nothing to do with me. See you later. I'm out.
It would have been better for his life situation if he had done that. That's for sure.
I would have stood up and applauded all by myself watching that.
It would have been great. And this was actually, I mean, we've had many in television and cinema. There's been many phenomenal, unforgettable, badass lines. I mean, we had I'll Be Back from Terminator 2, 3, 5, 7, and 10. We had Say Hello to My Little Friend from Scarface. And then tonight, from Chester to Henry, we had Promise Me You'll Give the Picture to Luz's Abuela. It was just like, he is kicking ass. No more excuses. Watch out, people. He is making it happen.
So he goes. He apparently can follow the stones to where this burial site is. Let's not ask. He goes. No. He goes there, and he's like, "Listen, I will be the tribute. I volunteered to be tribute." And Luz isn't going to have it. She's like, "You're not Dezo anymore. Screw you." You know, and he's like, "Listen to me. I will, I'll take the place of my father told me this, my father told me that," and he's referring to Henry. And that pisses Yuko off. She says, "Your father, he died before you were born. You don't even know your father." And then who comes in?
Mysterious circumstances.
Henry comes in. "I'm your daddy now."
I mean, Henry, you know what? Henry was too good for this world. Certainly too good for Chester.
Well, he tries to protect him. He gives him these things. He's got a wrapped around his hand is something he calls the old teachings, which protect the living from these Yurei, these Bakemonos. And the words will trap her till... Previously, when we tried to kill her, we put these words that would bind her on her, but then we burned her, and so the words were gone, and they couldn't keep her anymore. Yuko is ripping her face in some graphic face ripping. And then
the arm ripping, I thought, was way creepier and scarier and gorier than we've seen what's under Yuko's face before. But man, Henry, she's Louise.
So somehow, even though these old teachings wrapped around his arm are supposed to protect him from the dead, Yuko is able to rip those off his arm and then take over Henry. We've got Yuko Henry. We've got Henko on with a shotgun shooting Chester. You guys had to love this. Chester goes down, and he goes down as protecting the infant as well as I suppose you could if you'd been shot in the leg.
I don't know. You gotta toss him to the side.
If you watch it with the closed captioning on, Henry actually says to Yuko, "You don't need to take over my body. I'm going to shoot Chester anyway."
Now, you guys are such double H's.
Double H's.
Henry haters that this is getting a bit...
No, we love Henry. We love Henry.
Well, you hate him because his aim was so bad.
We'll see.
Well, we're Chester chastisers. That's what...
Okay, so all hope is lost. Yuko is back in her body. She's picking up the baby. Chester is out of commission. Henry, R.I.P. When who shows up? Her sister and the mother of that child, Luz. Ba-boom! And now it is a lady fight.
That's not what I was thinking when I watched it at all.
It's like we're watching Glow on Netflix.
Oh my.
No, it was definitely...
So the sisters start arguing with each other. And Asako's like, you killed my husband, nearly killed my son. And then Yuko back to her. They weren't yours to begin with. Oh, snap, snap, ice cold, ice cold. While they're just catting at each other, Luz looks at him and is like, I think they're going to be a while. She jumps into the grave, grabs the baby, and Asako is stone cold, stabbing, and I mean stabbing the crap out of her sister, a.k.a. Yuko. Did you like this, Catfish? You were so negative on this episode. Did you like mass stabbings?
Loved it. That's why I ranked the episode on the Killer Coco scale.
She is not messing around, although, I mean, Yuko is, her face is half torn off and she's semi-stitched up, but she's in this beautiful kimono. And, Coco is wearing, like, some cardigan. Like, I just don't think it's fair. Like, she needs to wear, I need cool shades. If Amy gets a beret, Asako gets a beret. I want to see a little bit more panache for Chester's mom. She's earned that.
Well, she may have earned that, but it is a stalemate. Chester's like, listen, you can stab her 1,000,000 times. That's not going to stop her. There's no way to stop her. Luz is like, oh, wait a minute. And that's when Yuko joins the tea party.
You know what? This is the second time we've had somebody in this season go, you know what? There's a very complicated ritual that I've seen once, so I'll give it a shot.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's true. And she, and when Luz saw it, that Luz performs it, like, absolutely perfectly. MVP Luz. She is bringing it in. Now, do you think so? Chester, are they in the barn? I can't actually tell. Or are they just in the woods?
You mean when they're drinking the tea? I think they are still out in the woods, but I could be wrong. Anybody?
It looks like they're in the woods, but I don't know where did the tea kettle come from?
You know that third person in the car, the babysitter.
Where did they because it's like some kind of crazy mystical ayahuasca type tea.
Yeah.
Where'd they get it?
Coffee bean and tea leaf shop.
You're totally right.
So let's get to it. And once again, I'm going to go to you, Catfish, because you were the toughest critic on this. We go into the afterlife with Chester and his wayward mom, Yuko. And Chester is trying to get the woman who's been tormenting, the woman who's ruined his life all these years, to go back to a place where she still had the two boys in her belly. What did you think of this scene? What did you think of giving the monster, for all intents and purposes, kind of a peaceful, graceful exit, Catfish?
It makes sense, although, honestly, it feels like, in a story like this, at the very least, the guilty should be punished. And if some innocent gets swept up in the way, that's all right, too. But let's be honest, the guilty did not get punished in this one.
Chester?
Chester, Chester not for who he is as far as his lineage, but just who he is as a person, his personality. But really, honestly, it should be Asako.
Whoa.
I think that's an interesting point, Catfish, because she is the one who backstabbed her sister, in her sister's point of view, stole her sister's life.
But do we? Okay, but we don't. This is the problem. This is the problem with the revisionist history here. Is we don't actually know. A few episodes ago, you're 100% right, Bubba, but I don't know what actually was the story now.
No, this is a great point. And how about this? If Yuko didn't learn she was pregnant until that 2-month boat trip to America, where by that point it's too late. Who's to say that if she hadn't been pregnant, her life with Furuya might have somehow worked out? Nah, it's just tough.
Yeah, and she's still, I mean, seriously, like, people didn't know it. Like, she could have just been like, yep, well, hey, baby came early, Baby came 5 months early,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not, whatever, forget that. That's not the issue. Her handling of the situation wasn't the issue. It's the issue is we're being told we're being told that what you said, Bubba, was, is correct, that Asako did a switcheroo, because Henry may not have been as generous, but maybe he was, for whatever reason, he was far more.
It seems like Henry would have been okay with it. Just knowing the kind of person that he is, he would have been more understanding.
Yeah, well, if he took in Chester either way, so
right, and in fact, he sacrificed himself for Chester even after Chester proved that he was a trash human being who didn't deserve it.
You guys are so tough. Chester, think of how happy he made Yuko by bringing her back to a time before he was born.
Think about how happy he made everyone. So wait, so then
I saw what you did there, Bubba, and it was beautifully done.
So then Chester was never born, correct?
In that fantasy world, in the limbo land, yeah.
He never gets a chance to disappoint.
So guys, now let's get to we began the episode with somebody alive dreaming of a scene reuniting with somebody who died. And here at the end, we have a similar scene where Chester, who is alive, is somehow connected with his father, Henry, on the boat, in the water, the place where you're not on the land where the trouble is, you're on the water. And even if these guys had trouble, there is a bit of peace that we see between them at the end.
It doesn't, but I still have a problem with. In other words, if it had somehow been made clear this was in Chester's mind, or even Henry says something like, where it's sort of made obvious that, this is from beyond or something, or he gives them something. I could have bought it, but it's just too. When you leave it up there, like what's going on, it dulls the impact of the scene.
Yeah, well, it was just, it was just that imaginary photograph on the coffin at the end was just.
That's what kills it. What kills it.
Yeah, that was not necessary. That was, yeah. I'd like to think there were other photographs of Henry. Maybe not, but who knows?
Well, all right, and then we get to the final denouement where we're back up to 1950, I believe is what the chyron on the screen said. And it's a reunion, and we see that Chester and Luz, or as I call them, Team Looster, they have 3 kids. They're really happy. We keep mentioning Beatnik Amy. Yamato-san is still alive, even though he's retired to Hawaii. And so everything's good. Everything's golden. Happy ending for all.
No, but it's not. Chester is so scarred by his experience, he's turned his whole life into verifying whether or not people are Yureis. I mean, isn't that what he's doing? Is by being a professional photographer?
That is a super good point.
Setting up the Terror Season 3 Kodak. All right, guys.
Yeah, it was cool, and actually those pictures were very, very well done. But somebody in there is definitely a Yurei. I don't know who. And it
would have been nice to end with something along those lines. If unlike last year's where it was just like almost everybody is dead, almost everybody is alive in this one. So it would have been nice to have some little bump.
Yeah, well, they had the gust of wind, which I'm assuming was a good, was Henry's gust of wind,
right?
Leaving now, but who?
Although it would have been justified if Henry in one last, just a little petulant move, blew Chester's hat off of his head into the water.
Or
blew Chester into the water where they got eaten by shark.
All right. Okay.
So
let's
sorry, I don't. But in the Ishida family photograph. Yeah. We've got Beatnik Amy and W.W. Walt. Is that Major Bowen with Amy's mom? Who is that dude?
Oh man, I missed this.
Who is that white guy?
You get to see so many deleted scenes and extra things when you watch it the way you do.
It's true. It's definitely worth it. But who is that guy?
Bowen 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Electric Boogaloo.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, Mork. I don't have that image queued up right here.
It's the Ishida family photo. So,
you think they were trying to imply that after the war that in the 50s people were cool with Japanese Americans and Caucasian Americans getting married? Because I don't think that was the case for a while.
Right.
It's. I mean, I'm trying to tell. I mean, he actually does look a lot like Major Bowen. So maybe this is what happened. Major Bowen had a brother, Colonel Bowen, who came to investigate what happened to his brother. And in the course of that, Colonel Bowen fell in love with Amy's mother.
Wow, beautiful.
Man.
Makes sense.
It writes itself. And we will be pitching our locations and historical events for the Terror Season 3 in a bit. But guys, we got to get to it. It's the end of the season. We could do an ice cold moment for tonight, or we could do the ice cold of the season. Catfish, you love these ice colds as much as anybody. Do you have one for tonight that you especially love, or one for the season that you'll always cherish in your ice cold heart?
Oh man, it has to be. It has to be from last week's episode. The ice cold of the year is Henry's reintroduction to Chester, where he says, I would have told you to leave that poor girl alone. If you love her, you wouldn't bring any misery to her. I would have told you to be a man, but it's too late for that now.
Oh, that is brutally ice cold. Mork, how about you? One from tonight or one for the season that you'll always cherish?
I'm going dark Amy. Dark beatnik Amy tonight.
Oh, okay.
Tonight. Yeah, we're at the reunion, and Luz goes to bring her some chocolate or something, and Amy she's the only person wearing black at all. Number one. Number two, she's by herself. Number three, she's smoking.
Number four, she's single.
I'll be right back. But it gives her bad memories. Seeing her people give her nightmares. It was like, it hurts.
That is ice cold. As the only member of Team Chester, I'll give it out for the season for Chester's classic. My parents are dead.
Oh, but you still didn't say it right.
Okay, sorry.
My parents are dead.
All right, listeners, double L's, write to us on our social media platforms at double PHQ. That's the word double, the single letter P, then the letters HQ for headquarters on our Twitter and Instagram. Facebook.com/double PHQ. All right, guys, I mentioned it before. Maybe for our final episode this season, we should talk about, is there a historical event, historical place, since we've been in the Arctic in the 1800s, and now we've been in these terrible Japanese internment camps in the 1940s. Is there another historical event or place you think would be a good place to set a series like The Terror, where there's some horror elements confronting our heroes in addition to some historical events? Any thoughts, any ideas, guys?
Well, sadly, I don't think there's any lack of potential places throughout history where they could do this. So one thing that I will say, and I think that we've had from maybe a plot standpoint some issues with this season, but I think we all agree that it was beautifully shot. It was really, really well acted, and there were a lot of great moments, and a lot of it in terms of the spookiness and the surprises, and so they are really making some good television here. And I would love to see. I'd like to see it, in a much different part of the world. I don't know if that's part of their purview. Maybe we had the North Pole. We had all over the place. So, maybe someplace down in Madagascar or Australia during, shipping all the convicts there. All sorts of craziness could have happened. Who knows? But I'm looking forward to it, no matter where it's at.
Catfish, any thoughts, any ideas from you?
Well, it's hard because I feel like there have been a lot of stories of people, kind of deprivations at sea, but then when you're at sea, it can't be. They couldn't do just like 10 episodes. Plus, they've done that already. So I'm kind of struggling to think of one, and maybe that's good. Maybe they'll come up with something that I didn't know about, and maybe they will be able to mesh the plots together again well. I mean, let's face it, the first one was taken from a book, a very long book, that was great. And so they really had a nice track to go along. I would almost pitch for, I wonder if maybe not do something real that would be restricting. So what I'm thinking about was, what if they kind of look maybe a little bit into the future, right? And let's say love it. Let's say that vampires are real, and like one of them gets sent to the United States on a plane, and when that plane lands, like everybody's dead on the plane, and then there's a vampire like attack like throughout New York City. And, like, sometimes people act crazy. There's ambulance in the background. But then sometimes people act normal as if nothing is going wrong. So, I feel like that's a show that could go good. I don't know if it could go a full season. It certainly couldn't go more than a season.
As long as it only goes 10 episodes, I think I'll be good. Listeners, enter the time machine to hear our coverage of The Strain on FX for that inside joke. Oh, so well set up. It was so well set up.
I'm trying to figure out when you realized what I was doing.
First punch Catfish in the belly. Look, as long as I get to see,
I turned that shotgun around on you, boys.
As long as I get to see Nora's mother's daughter's mom take it up with Luz's mother's daughter's Luz, then I'm happy.
Wow, great.
Oh man.
What about you, Bubba? What do you think?
Well,
honestly, do you think it'd be better if it was something that's fictional?
Well, Catfish, what's funny is when you said, well, they've already done the sea, you kind of took me away from where I was thinking. And although this movie wasn't exactly like kind of the setup of the Terror, season 1 or season 2, I always think back to The Abyss. And in The Abyss, spoiler alert generally for it, you had this terrible human villain who was succumbing to kind of the elements he was in deep sea area, underwater sea area. And then you also had this, to keep it spoiler free, kind of possible monster outside this deep sea base. And so I always thought that was so fascinating and so good. And I wonder if you could do something the same. But now, Catfish, since you mentioned we were on a boat for one whole season,
right?
Maybe it would be.
And I even thought of like the airplane disaster. But again, there, where they ended up kind of eating each other, the soccer team. But that was also kind of in the snow. It's kind of the same thing. Now, what if we did? Like, let's go back to the plane idea, but no vampires this time. But how about some motherfucking snakes?
Okay, with that, let's run away. We run away. Are these two lovely actresses who put up with our silliness? They've run away. Listeners, we don't want you to run away. We want you to be with us. You've heard us talk about other podcasts we've done. They're fun rides. If you are looking for a show to binge, certainly check out some of those shows. And please join us on our social media site. We don't have ads because of all our terrible jokes, but also because this is really about connecting with you guys. For everybody here at Double P Media, which is always found at Double PHQ, my name's Bubba. You can admittedly find me on Twitter at Fit and Trim. That's FITTENTRIM at Fit and Trim on Twitter.
And I'm Catfish. You can hit me up at CJGman67 on Twitter.
Mork is at Extraordinary. That's extraordinary with a W in front of the final R.
And for everyone here, we want to thank you for joining us. And we promise next year we'll continue to mispronounce all our wonderful actors' names. Good night, everybody. Sorry. Yeah, let me scratch that. Okay. So thank you so much for joining us on season 2 of
Ice Cold.
Naoko Mori.
Yeah.
Naoko Mori.
Naoko Mori.
No, Naoko.
Naoko Mori.
Naoko.
Okay.
Naoko.
Listen, when I'm going to see her, I'm just going to say, Coco.
Open the door, Judd. Find out.
Wouldn't it have been great if they could have gone over to Catfish's house tonight? That would have been so great.
That would have been, but we would have had to have planned that earlier. Because even when they first mentioned, I was like, how are we going to do this so we don't look so...
ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, boy.